Maggie. I'm a licensed clinical psychotherapist with degrees in psychology, theology, and marriage and family therapy, a national certification in dialectical behavioral therapy, and a national certification in integrative mental health. In this video, I'm not looking to diagnose anyone. I'm only willing to offer insight into situations like these. Hey everybody, happy Sunday. Did you guys know 56% of people in Western societies experience an existential crisis at some point in their lifetime? Over half are questioning their meaning and purpose. That's a lot. And we probably all just thought of reasons why people in Western society have an existential crisis. Have you had yours yet? Have you had your government ordered existential crisis yet? If not, I'll turn in your name and then you can have yours. All right, let's say hi to some people before we get started. Adric is first. He says it's on. That means it's going to be a good show. Here's Nina with the cool peace signs, my favorite auntie. Thank you, Adric and Nina, for being here. There's a gnat in here, so if you see me doing this, it's because I bought a lot of produce at the grocery store. And this time of year, you always get gnats. Okay. Adrian is here. He says, let's go. Yes, let's go. Thank you for being here. Cynical Optimist. Peace to Maggie and the chat. Peace to you as well, Cynical Optimist. And Adric says, let's hear it for the Dancing Maggies. Every time I see it, I want to have somebody else record it so they can say it right. Okay. Nick Morrison is here. He's number 3, my best yet. He says, good job, Nick. Thanks for being here. Chef Mike is here. He says it's Comfort Food Sunday. I'm always down for comfort food, I think. My stomach's not always down for comfort food. He says beef stew over rice with cornbread on the side. Okay, is this sweet cornbread? Is it sweet? Like, does it have a little added sugar, a little vanilla, some honey? Is it sweet? I like sweet cornbread. I also like cornbread with a little actual corn in it. All right, he has his adult beverage. Everybody get him ready. And watching me and the NFL. Thank you so much. See, I tell you, this is the Live Tribe is the greatest, right? They're like, the football game's on, but I'm going to be in 2 places at once. I love it. Inspired Truth is here. He says, happy Sunday, y'all. Happy Sunday to you, Inspired Truth. Thank you for being here. Leon is here. What up? How's work today, Leon? Dang. All right. All right. What else we got? Spain Man is here. Hey, Spain Man. Thank you for being here. All right. So let's get into it. Because, recently I have talked about one of the most important things to find meaning and purpose, right? That when you're red-pilled or you exit the matrix or you have an enlightenment or an awakening or dark night of the soul or whatever people want to call it, I think it's all very similar, if not the same thing. That finding meaning and purpose is important because you are waking up to indoctrination. I mean, that's essentially what enlightenment and awakening is that whatever you've been told is false. And so having some ability to ask yourself some questions, to find different meaning and purpose, because when you've been told what your meaning and purpose is, it's a lot, right? So I'm going to counteract that with absurdism. If you guys know me, you know that I look at things from multiple angles. Oh, wait, everybody pause because Chef Mike is telling about his cornbread. It's from scratch, grandmother's recipe, which automatically makes it good. Perfect balance of sweetness with a little molasses. And You keep talking about cornbread. Hi, is there by? Thank you for being here. All right. Leon says someone didn't do their job and I walked into an issue that my manager gave to someone else. Whoops. Whoops. I'm still thinking about molasses in the cornbread. I'm going to start doing that instead of honey. Just saying, I'm stealing it. This is what's happening. All right. So, absurdism is when you're grappling with life and trying to find the meaning and purpose, absurdism says it's just absurdity. There isn't one. There is no answer to the ultimate question, right? There is no underlying truth. There is no meaning and purpose. It's all just nuts. Okay. Now, also have my notes in front of me because you know how I do. So, in this world, in the world that we live in, right? People are constantly searching for what's their meaning, what's the purpose, what's my talent, what am I supposed to be doing? How am I supposed to handle this? How am I supposed to talk to this person? What am I supposed to do with my life? So, French Algerian philosopher Albert Camus, he says, it's nothing. It's just absurdity. So, absurdism takes an unflinching look at the conflict between humanity's desire to find inherent meaning in life and the universe's response to that, which is being indifferent and chaotic. Right. So, the universe isn't going to tell you anything. Right. Now, some people find meaning in their religion, in their spirituality, in their community, in what they're, everybody in their family was an engineer, so you got to be an engineer. So, but if you think about all those things are what other people told you what your meaning and purpose was, right? Like what your purpose in life other people hand to you. I mean, if we're talking about Western societies, the government hands you your script at birth and tells your parents, hey, make sure they know this is their script. This is what they're supposed to do. Now have them go plug into the system and make money for wealthy people. Shoo. Shoo, shoo. Chef Mike says no one is in charge. I really believe that. All right. So absurdism rose in the 20th century. So there had just been 2 world wars. And so people were like, this is nuts. What's our place in the cosmos? We just keep having wars and fighting and all this mess and terror. And so what is the hellscape that we live in, right? They were all getting existential dread and like disillusionment with the way of thinking, right? So think about a lot of times, especially during that time, war was justified by God, right? Because Western societies tend to be preternaturally Christian, right? So God was always on the side of the Western society, right? Like God doesn't want this to happen. God, right? And so when we're looking at films and we're hearing about things and the soldiers are coming back and they all have PTSD and shell shock and all this is happening, people are like, wait, what is even happening? Right? So Albert Camus says, it's just absurd. That's life, is to embrace the fact that it's just absurd and makes no sense. What do you guys think about that? Think life makes no sense? So, absurdism is really relevant now more than ever. At this time in our history, absurdism is really relevant, right? So we're all in this fast pace, we're all on this treadmill to like nowhere. We all have this technology, we're looking at screens and war is always just right there. It's almost going to happen, right? And everybody is supposed to achieve and it's all individualistic, right? Like I was looking at something this morning, was watching a couple documentaries this morning, and it was like something I noticed. Now this is racial, but it speaks to systemic stuff that leads to existential crises. It seemed as if watching these documentaries that and what the particular one I was watching was some stuff that happened during Jim Crow, and then another one that I watched that was happening just prior to some civil rights movements happening in the 60s. But what I noticed was that when Black people were on trial, it was like their intention meant nothing. Like whatever they intended didn't mean anything. You did the thing, so now you are in trouble. But when Black people or when white people did something, everybody was very concerned about their intent. And it reminded me about, mass shootings as they happen, which are primarily white males, that people immediately look into what was their intent. We've got to read their manifesto and, oh, they're mentally ill. So, but it's all just absurd. It's absurd. It literally makes no logical sense, right? So that's what it reminds me of in this where we live. We have so much information at our fingertips, and we can look up almost anything except for the stuff that they hide. But does anybody else know? Sorry, I'm going to have a squirrel moment, and my live tribe will be understanding. I know you will. Has anybody noticed that all these conspiracy theories or things that were labeled conspiracy theories for the longest time are just coming out boom, 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 one right after the other as true? And it was things that were considered conspiracy theories and like we were all made fun of for believing. And now it's one right after the other. I think we're all going to refer to Cat Williams as a prophet in 100 years because he said 2024, right? This is when all the truth comes out. Okay. But anyway, we have all this information and all this stuff is coming out, but we feel more lost and more alone than we ever have. So all the existential crises are like on the rise. Like, what's the meaning? What's the purpose? And so Albert Camus asked a really bold question. He was like, what if life has no meaning and that's okay? It just doesn't mean anything. It's just chaos. Hi, Indigo Flow. Thank you for being here. Chef Mike says, my wife and I were just having that conversation this morning. Then it's timely, right? It's relevant. You were meant to be here. And also let your wife watch. Hopefully she's watching. Okay, Indigo says, reminds me of what I used to say about white privilege. It essentially comes down to the benefit of the doubt. Yeah, it's like it falls into that intent, right? Like I didn't mean to be racist. It just was, right? There's really good people on both sides. Oh, Auntie says the truth shall set us free, right? And we're all just kind of waiting for the day that the whole truth and nothing but the truth comes out. Adric says, reminds me of the war on drugs, but different with fentanyl, right? So yeah, we went from the war on drugs to the drug epidemic, right? It was super predators, right? When other people were selling drugs and doing things. And then it went to, it's a disease that needs to be treated, right? Adrian says that's because the default position is that white people wouldn't normally do something heinous because they aren't predisposed to bad behavior. Yeah, that reminds me of something old BB said, why are you making us kill you? Wow. And if you can't say that that is just absurd, right? Like that's just absurd. They're making us commit the G word on them. I don't have the actual quote, but it's almost word for word. Okay. So we all feel pretty disconnected. All of this information is out here. All of this wackadoo stuff that makes no logical sense is around. So instead of finding our purpose, because purpose is elusive, or it's kind of arbitrary, or it's individualistic. You know, Albert Camus says it's all meaningless. So instead of being depressed by feeling like life is meaningless, instead of feeling hopeless about the fact that life is meaningless, he says, embrace the absurdity. Now, it kind of makes me think of learned helplessness. If you guys don't know what that is a condition where after facing continuous failure, probably due to barriers being put in your way or lack of control, people give up trying altogether, right? And this was proven scientifically back when scientists could experiment on animals and people just willy-nilly and do all kinds of things. But they had these kennels that had dogs in there. And when the dogs would do a certain behavior that the scientists didn't want them to do, they would zap the bottom of the kennel and the dog yip and jumps and then doesn't do that behavior anymore, maybe a few more times, but then doesn't do it anymore, right? So this was testing punishment. Well, the scientists and their, God complexes wondered what would happen if they just randomly got punished. Like they didn't do anything wrong, they just randomly got punished. And eventually the dogs just laid down on the floor of the kennel and they're being zapped. And the dogs are just laying there. They're not trying to avoid the floor. They're not trying to get out of the kennels. They're not trying to move. That's learned helplessness. Like there's nothing that can be done. I'm going to be punished regardless. And so no matter what I do, right, wrong, or otherwise, I could do something good. I'm going to be punished. I could do something bad. I'm going to be punished. I do nothing at all. I'm going to be punished. So humans experience this learned helplessness as well. So if you're facing like continuous failure, especially due to no fault of your own or lacking control, then you give up trying altogether. And so it manifests in anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, those kind of things, because it's this learned helplessness that you are helpless in the situation. So Camus says, instead of going towards the learned helplessness, just accept that it's all absurd. It's all weird. Don't have any expectations or try to garner meaning out of it. Just kind of be like, hey, I've incarnated in this weird ass hellscape and I'm going to try to find the fun where I can and just sort of shrug my shoulders at the absurdity and keep it moving. Now, what he said that does is it gives you more of a sense of control, right? Like the universe is not making it personal, which is sort of a weird way to think of that. But it gives you more confidence that, okay, well, I just embrace the absurdity. I did not have an itch in my throat when I started, and I thought, oh, it's going to be a good day. And then here it comes. Okay. So Leon says that wealthy young boy that killed someone just got out of prison. Obviously. Indigo says their goodness and virtue is assumed. Anything else is an aberration, an exception. Oh, especially where white women are concerned. Angelic could never. Right? Yeah. Almost a deity for which to protect at all costs, right? Chef Mike says, I think we're being flooded with truth as a setup for either a huge reveal or reset. Some people are talking about that it's a setup for first contact. So we'll see. Chef Mike also says operant conditioning gone horribly wrong. Yeah, or horribly right. I mean, according to the scientists, they got all the information they needed, right? I mean, it was terrible for the dogs. Azir says, well, the patch notes as paint will be installed without post about it. I don't quite know what you mean. Let me know. Leon says, Ethan Couch. Oh, that's the kid, right? Yeah. Yeah. Adrian Higgs is calling it affluenza. Right? It's a disease of being affluent. You have no accountability whatsoever. All right. So that helplessness manifests in anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, all those kind of things. Embrace absurdity, find the fun where you can, the rest of it. Have you guys ever this has not happened to me personally. I don't know why I needed to put that caveat there. I didn't. Who cares? There's a thing where people will have like nervous laughter. So some people have, if you have nervous laughter, you can say so. But there's also a thing where there are some people when you see something that is just so sad and traumatic and terrible that this weird laughter bubbles up. That reminds me of absurdism. It's like, wow, the world is so chaotic and crazy and nuts that this thing just happened that was super sad. But it's kind of an odd thing. Chef Mike says, embrace the absurdity. Once you accept a thing as a given, it's easier to move forward. Yeah, that's kind of that confidence he was talking about. Like the world's chaos and none of it's logical and doesn't make any sense. Oh, thank you, Azir. He's patching a video game, having balance issues, and normally posts before it gets going. Okay. Now I understand. Leon says, yes, way too much. Right. Some people have, dark humor or whatever too, So 40 million adults in the United States suffer from anxiety, and suicide rates have increased by 33% between 1999 and 2019. So in 10 years, it went up a third, 33%. And that's from the Anxiety and Depression Association of America in 2022. So I think, when you add that to the existential crises, like more than 56% of people, and then this huge increase in anxiety and suicide, finding meaning it's elusive at best, right? So people in an existential crisis also feel trapped in a cycle, right? When you're in existential crisis, it's like, these things are lies or this thing is not true, but I'm kind of trapped where I'm at, sort of being like in the tube on the way out of the matrix. You know what I mean? Like it's pretty claustrophobic, so then they get into the cycle of what's the meaning? What's the meaning? What's the meaning? What's the meaning? Right. And they just sort of drown in the indifference of everybody else around them. So absurdism, Camish said, right? So absurdism challenges the traditional search for meaning by suggesting that the search itself is absurd. The search itself. Albert Camus, in his famous essay, The Myth of Sisyphus, some of you know about Sisyphus, compares human life to the story of Sisyphus, condemned by the gods to roll a boulder up a hill for eternity only for it to roll back each time. So Camus said, like Sisyphus, humans are trapped in a cycle of searching for meaning in a universe that doesn't provide answers or give a crap about you. But instead of being in despair, Camus believed that we should embrace the absurdity of that situation, right? So Adrian says, we all know about that laugh. That's why we don't like when what's-her-face does it. Yep. So the key tenets of absurdism. So number one, the absurd. The absurd is the constant conflict between our desire for meaning and the silent, indifferent universe, right? Like the universe doesn't go, your meaning is to, right? The second one is revolt, which is accepting the absurd and rebelling against it, not by finding meaning, but by living fully in spite of it. This is what I'm saying. Like, find your happiness because the universe, and let me caveat this with when he says the universe, he's not really talking about the universe. He's talking about society. So I'm going to start using the word society. So So the revolt is accepting the absurd and rebelling against it, not by finding meaning, but by living fully despite it. The revolt becomes your purpose. Oops. So even though, his philosophy, his self said, you're not going to find meaning and purpose, blah, blah, blah. He literally says the revolt becomes the purpose and that there's no meaning behind that, right? It's a purpose without a meaning. But really, there's a meaning, right? Like the meaning is living in spite of society trying to fight you, right? The third one is freedom. So once we accept the lack of inherent meaning, we're free to create our own, right? So then and this is him, right? Even though he said there's no meaning and purpose, it's all absurd, it's all nuts. You don't even need one. Then he gives you the tenets of how to find a meaning and purpose. So freedom is finding your own meaning, right? Living fully in spite of society's absurdity, right? Once your purpose is to live fully in spite of society's absurdity, then you are free to create your own meaning in life. Okay. It always reminds me of this question. I guess it's a two-part question, but do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Now that sounds like this could give people some cognitive dissonance. You know what I mean? Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Now, the way I hear it is, do you want to do what everybody else is telling you you're supposed to do to be viewed as right? Are you enough of a somebody and everybody's telling you you're enough of a somebody that you're allowed to now exist? Or do you want to be happy? Because sometimes those two things don't go well together. They don't play nice together. Okay. So number 4 is authenticity. So, I love it, right? I love it. We're talking about freedom and authenticity. Yes, I love it. Okay. Authenticity. Living in the face of the absurd allows us to live more authentically, embracing our individual experiences and choices. So being authentic, because society is absurd. And so instead of getting learned helplessness and the anxiety and the depression and all that goes along with it, be weird. Be the thing. Say the thing. Be a weirdo. Be a freako. Be a conspiracy theorist. Be whatever it is that you are. Be a nerd. Be whatever. Because society is going to be absurd whether you do what they tell you to do or don't do what they tell you to do. So do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Okay. Cutting up with the Joneses this here. Hi, thank you for being here. Adrian says revolt. I now like absurdism. Yes. But it's more an existential revolt. It's not really fighting. Spainman says a coworker was tragically deleted when I was in high school. Oh, that's so sad. Me and my friend who worked there were talking about it while giggling, and we had no clue why we were doing it. That's a thing that when your system is overwhelmed, it'll do weird things. Think about infants. If you guys have ever been around infants, there are times when infants will start making a noise right before they cry, where it's a laugh, or like something will upset them and they'll laugh before they cry. And then other times, something so silly, silly, silly. Dads are great at this, by the way. Dads can make babies laugh like none other. I don't know. I don't get it. Men have some sort of inherent can make baby giggle gene. I don't know. But they'll start giggling so hard they'll cry. So you see how those two systems are very, very interconnected and tied to each other. So as babies are like delineating their systems, they kind of interchange sometimes. So for us, that can happen when our system is overwhelmed. These weird things happen. Cynical says, do you want to know the truth or do you want to feel good? Yeah. And I don't even know if it's feel good. Do you want to know the truth or do you want to, what is that feeling when you're in the matrix and like you're doing everything they tell you to do? I get where you're going. Like, I just want to tweak it. Do you want to know the truth or do you want to feel morally superior? Like feel good about yourself. You know what I mean? Like I'm morally superior. Because think about all the people we know who are morally superior. Are they operating in the truth? Absolutely not. Leanne says, I believe in freedom and creating my own, especially if it's tolerable. Oh, no society will fall apart. Okay, let's test the hypothesis. That's what I say all the time. Test it. If you've never listened to your inner voice, the best way to test it to see if it's full of crap or not is when you're driving. Like you're going somewhere, you pretty much know how to get there. And then you might hear just this little voice that's like, turn right here. And you're like, okay, well, I was going to go the other way, but sure, try it, do it, see what happens. See if you find out later that there was a wreck or something somewhere or something happened or, you know, or the road was closed for construction or something, you know. Azir says, subconsciously, you think you'll get more resources, and that explains the laugh by instincts. Well, maybe. Leon says, my son cries and laughs at the same time. Babies and children like men more than women. Babies and children like men more than women. I think, I don't know about the liking part. I think babies assign mothers and fathers roles. They do. But I also think men can just put down dads can put down their ego pretty easily with their kids to just be silly and giggle and play and have fun. Kind of with the Joneses says truth or dreams. Yeah, totally get that. Okay. So by rejecting the idea that life needs some grand purpose, absurdism offers personal freedom. And that's important, right? That's how we get to authenticity. That's how we get to finding our own meaning, right? The purpose is just to say, yep, this is how it is. Okay. So, one of the most profound existential crises that a person can face is losing their faith. Okay. This has happened to lots of people, even people who are still in their religious doctrine or dogma now have gone through, a crisis of faith. We've heard that before. You guys know that saying, but that's one of the most profound ones. Hi, I'm listening. Thank you for being here. Leon says he agrees. Yeah. And Inspired Truth says dads are hilarious. That's why they're called dad jokes. I love dad jokes, by the way. Love them. They do make you groan and roll your eyes sometimes, but like that's just like the physical, visceral response to it. Ah, I love dad jokes. All right. So when we talk about loss of faith, so if you imagine growing up with a belief system that gave you your meaning, gave life meaning, right? So we're in the West, and I say this a lot, primarily Christianity, and it's a westernized version of Christianity. The meaning and purpose and all of that comes from God, right? Like God knows your path before you're born, and your purpose in life is to please God and not piss off God. Your meaning and purpose is all about being Christian or being in the Word or being God's chosen or being saved, right? The whole thing gives you structure, and it's handed to you and you've got it and you got the book and you say, the Word of God never changes. And then you find out that it's changed, 100,000 times since the original scrolls. And I'm not being hyperbolic, right? King James himself changed 30,000 things in the Bible, just him, right? And so you start finding all these things out and you're like, no, 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 because your religion answered all your big life questions, right? It was the truth, the way, and the light. That's what you got about life, death, morality, existence. Like it answered everything. And so when you go through a crisis of faith or an existential crisis, number one, that's not allowed in the religious dogma to question God or question your beliefs or question the Bible or question those kind of things. And so it can create even more feelings of being overwhelmed. Okay. So something shifts, you find out something about the Bible or about popes or about slave Bibles or Protest Protestantism. That's such a hard word. So you get this like disillusionment, right? So suddenly the faith that you held dear, like it doesn't make sense anymore. And that loss can be devastating, right? You've totally lost your structure, your meaning, your purpose. Because without structure, meaning, and purpose, what's left? You know, the foundation has crumbled, that the foundation has given way and the house of cards has fallen. So there's really this big void of uncertainty that you really feel like you got to fill it. You got to put something in there. You can't not. Okay. So instead of feeling adrift and feeling helpless and anxious and feeling depressed and despair and all these kind of things, society, which seemed very ordered and purposeful one day, the very next day feels indifferent and very chaotic and kind of almost like it's punishing you. And so when you go, well, why was I even born? Why are people born? Why are humans born? Where do they come from? What's a spirit? What's a soul? You start having all these massive questions, right? Absurdism says, don't despair, right? Embrace its absence. Thank God I got rid of that, right? Thank God I took that, suit off and now I'm free to move about the way I want. Because now I don't believe I'm, what do they say? Like going to hell or I'm going to be punished for all of eternity or whatever. Again, and I'm not dogging Christianity. I'm just saying this is the biggest existential crisis people can go through. So absurdism says in a world without meaning, you're free to create your own. Make your own, make a personal meaning. What's your meaning, right? See, y'all knew that I would tie this into my show about finding your meaning and purpose by asking 3 important questions. So if you haven't watched it yet, go back and watch that one because it's all tied in together. So the crisis of faith doesn't have to be the end of the story, okay? Absurdism says if you're not getting clear answers, you can find meaning in the simple act of just being alive. And I've heard this before too, like especially with people who have been oppressed, they're like their biggest fu to oppressors is by still being here. Like maybe my meaning and purpose in life is to just to still be here and be happy and fu. And if that brings you happiness, I love it. So it's about letting go of the societal constraints, right? It's about letting go of all the dogma that you've been given. And then you have all this freedom to pursue your passions, to pursue whatever relationship you want to be in, to experience anything you want to experience without needing them to fit into this grand cosmic societal plan for you, right? Do what you want because people are going to hate you regardless. Somebody's going to hate you. Somebody's going to make fun of you. Something's going to be chaotic. We're still going to have wars. Like all the BS is still going to happen, whether you're doing everything like perfection. You are so perfect. All the bad crap's still going to happen to you. So you might as well just be weird. Might as well. Spainman says, like watching Usual Suspects for the first time when you realize that the whole timeline you just watched was a lie. Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree with that. Totally agree. So, what have we learned today? We live in a world where existential crisis, anxiety, and depression rates are high, super high. And I work in mental health, so, they are super high. The search for meaning in an indifferent society can feel overwhelming, and sometimes we feel paralyzed, like we're stuck. I can't do this thing because I have to do this thing. So again, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Because either way, the bad crap's going to happen. So pick one. Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Absurdism does offer a way out. It doesn't give you an answer. It doesn't give you the instruction. It says it's not there. You have to find your own. It frees us from the need for having to find one outside of ourselves at all. Camus suggests we must imagine Sisyphus happy. By embracing the absurdity of life, we gain the freedom to live authentically, passionately, and without fear of failure. Because failure is also a construct. If you try something and it didn't work, that's all it means. You can choose to try it again, or you can say, nope, that was hard. Don't want to do it. Or you can do it again. Who are you trying to please? Who are you trying to make happy? Who are you trying to impress? If you're not impressing yourself, if you're not making yourself happy, then none of it matters because people are finicky, right? So how will you guys live in the face of the absurd, right? Albert Camus quote, I'm going to end with, the struggle itself toward the heights is enough to fill a man's heart. One must imagine Sisyphus happy. So if you were to imagine Sisyphus happy, how would you do that? And I don't know. I imagine that he makes a game out of it. He, invents the game of basketball, whatever, he finds ways, right? Or maybe he just puts down the boulder and says, I'm out, right? He's cursed to do it, but who told him he was cursed to do it? They told him that. Stop doing it. Stop rolling the boulder. Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Cynical Optimist says, I like to say the meaning of life is that it needs a purpose. Oh, I kind of dig that. Yeah, we as humans, that's another human thing, that we need a meaning and a purpose. I don't know why. We just do. So we have to find one, right? And so we either look for it externally or internally. And what everything shows us, philosophy, science, psychology, everything says if you don't find it internally, that you're going to experience anxiety and depression and despair and feeling stuck and feeling out of control and all those kind of things. So, all right. Let's talk about upcoming shows and a new way I'm going to be doing things. So on Pivot Point Wednesdays, coming up, I'm going to do the regular show live on YouTube. And then because I'm going to start saying some things that YouTube's really going to start hating. Coming up in the future, so probably this coming Wednesday is when I'm going to start. If not, it'll be the Wednesday after. The Let's Get Weird portion and the tinfoil hat will be on Patreon Live. So we'll have a regular show. It'll be the regular show on Wednesday, and I'm probably still, because you know me, I'm probably still going to say some weird stuff and maybe a little tinfoil hat stuff. But those particular sections are going to be like an after show live on Patreon Live, so that I can speak a bit more freely. It will be open to free subscribers too. So my Patreon you can be a paid subscriber if you want to do that. And I appreciate everybody who does that. But you also have a free option too. So, and I will do the lives open to free and paid members. So if you want to be a part of that, you can go and do that. And you can decide if you want to be a paid member or a free member. That doesn't, whatever you choose, that doesn't affect me at all. So that change is going to start for Pivot Point Wednesdays, that we're going to get really deep afterwards on Patreon Live. So coming up this Wednesday, the Pivot Point Wednesday is why hurting people's feelings is good for you. I will stand all 10 toes on that. So that's going to be a super interesting one, right? And then the following Sunday, so a week from today, will be positive affirmations for men. You know what's really interesting is I use this this little generator thing that will generate some ideas for titles. So you put in what your show's going to be about, and it'll generate ideas for titles that'll get clicks. You know what I mean? And I'm going to curse if everybody's ready. Woo! I put that in about these positive affirmations, right? And all of the suggestions that came up started with "Don't be a pussy." It's like, oh my God. So I did not use that. So it's going to be about positive affirmations that men need, you know. And then that following Wednesday, there's going to be some personal information from me, but it's going to be about that big regret of wasted time. So we're going to talk about that, about wasting time, regretting wasting time. Still in October, we're going to go over spiritual awakenings and are they legit or just a trend? And then breaking free from toxic beliefs and patterns. So that schedule is coming up. I'm already working on the November one, which I think you guys are really going to like. Wholeheartedly appreciate the live tribe. You guys are the best. The best. Let me read a little bit more before we go out. Exorcism boom, the first businesses get built like religion. Yes. Leon says, I'm here solely because I'm entertained by the circus. Second reason is because I have a son. Yes, I like that. And Leon says, Patreon, Patreon, Patreon. I think the link is on my channel. If you have a wrench, put it in here. I think the link is in the about section on my channel. I don't remember. You can probably just search it in Patreon. Inspired Truth says Patreon Unfiltered. Yeah, and I'm probably going to cuss, just so you guys know. As there says, makes no sense because sleep is a waste of time. Adrix says, count me in. And Auntie is reminding everyone to hit the like button. Smash that like button on the way in, on the way out. All right. And for the replay gang, thank you so much for watching. Comment, comment, comment. I love to read the comments. I think they're fantastic. And I will see you guys. If I don't see you on Wednesday, I'll see you next Sunday. So let me show you a picture of my dog. Please like the video if you haven't already. It really helps the algorithm to know what kind of things you like. Share where you think it's appropriate, especially to someone who you think needs to hear it. And don't forget to check out some of the wilder Pivot Point Wednesday shows. And last, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, especially if you want to break down complex concepts that make the esoteric not so teric, helping you on your journey to become your most authentic self. By subscribing, you'll join a community that thrives on curiosity and growth, and you'll never miss out on insights and some wild discussions. Let's uncover the universe together. Bye.